On this episode of the Neutral Wisdom podcast, Satanist and satanic warlock Robert Shirley discusses the loss of a loved one and the grieving process, and is joined by Church of Satan Reverend Jeff Ivins. You are listening to the Neutral Wisdom podcast, a podcast dedicated to passing on knowledge and experience from a satanic perspective, hosted by Satanist and satanic warlock Robert Shirley.
Greetings and welcome to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Satanist and Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley, and today we're going to be discussing the grieving process and the passing of a person whom we would consider our soulmate. I'll be joined later by Church of Satan Reverend Jeff Ivins, who has recently experienced a loss like this, for some personal opinions on this subject. Now, admittedly, this was a tough episode for me to think about. My soulmate, the inimitable Ms. Wiz, is still with me, and for that, I'm most grateful. But a conversation with Reverend Ivins was enough to get me thinking about what happens when our partner, our heart, as it were, passes on. I think that as someone who's gone through this type of grief, and to an extent is still going through it, Reverend Ivins' experience could be of some help to anyone who will experience the same thing, and we all will sooner or later. Having not experienced this myself, I had to put myself in Reverend Ivins' shoes and imagine what it would be like if I were to suddenly lose Ms. Wiz. Now, there's absolutely no way I can predict how that would actually go, or the depth of the emotions I would have to go through, but I did let the thought sink in and looked at it from a satanic perspective, which is easy for me right now. However, as I've said many times, theory and practice are two completely different things. My only hope after all of this and my discussion with Reverend Ivins is that I'm able to eventually see clearly enough to follow my own advice. I'm not actually sure what would happen, to be honest. I've never allowed myself to get close enough to another human being to experience loss at that level. But with Ms. Wiz, I have become completely exposed. There's nothing she doesn't know about me, and I am completely enamored with her existence. If you had to look up limerence in the dictionary, you'd most likely see a picture of me mooning over Ms. Wiz like a love-struck puppy. And you know what? I'm completely okay with that. I think that's the depth of what our soulmate is. I mean, when someone goes from being happy about your texts to washing your underwear, what else could explain it? I love the fact that we're so comfortable with each other that we can say things to each other that would be grounds for divorce for other couples. But, like with anything, that comes with boundaries and mutual respect. For example, we never say those types of things when we're arguing. I love how she's always happy to see me when I come home, although not as happy as the dog is, but I digress. But then the reality of finality sets in. And even though it's not my reality right now, even thinking about it is really, really hard. My daughter, Little Wiz, has told us that she thinks Mom will go first. I'm not sure why, and neither is she. But maybe she's right. Maybe part of my own journey is to experience loss at that level. Makes me shudder to think about how true that might actually be. As an aside, I did tell Ms. Wiz that should I go first and there actually is an afterlife, that I would come back to her in the middle of the night and tell her all about it. Maybe by throwing stuff around the room or just appearing at the foot of the bed. I'm such a stinker. Anyway, let's take a look at my objective views on this before we bring on Reverend Ivins to discuss the reality of it. This essay is titled, Losing a Soulmate, Mourn the Loss and Celebrate Life. What is a soulmate? Merriam Webster defines a soulmate as a close friend or romantic partner with whom one has a unique, deep connection based on mutual understanding and acceptance. Those who followed Neutral Wisdom for a while now know that my soulmate is definitely the one, the only, the inimitable Ms. Wiz. Perfectly suited to me and I to her. I'm as much in love with her today as I was when we first got together 25 years ago. She gets me. I get her. We are incredibly comfortable with each other and want each other's happiness. We love each other at our best and at our worst. Whether you believe in the concept of soulmates or not, there's no denying a connection we can have with someone which feels like it's on a whole other level. Although we as Satanists do not recognize the soul as an energy or life force, soulmate is an apt term we can use to describe the person who is suited to us and only us. the person with whom we feel deeply connected, the person who makes us feel loved, safe, and understood. Soulmates share a mutual respect, genuine love, and complete understanding of each other. Eventually, however, soulmates must part, whether through circumstance or death. If you've reconciled with the fact that we all die, or made friends with death yourself, you already realize that death is a part of life. We're born, we live, and we die, as do all living things. Making friends with death is an internal process with which we must all come to terms. But how does one deal with the death of a soulmate? When a part of you is ripped away and leaves you feeling empty and incomplete. I believe that one does, in fact, suffer a sort of death themselves, since such a huge part of their life effectively dies with the other person. There are multiple texts and guidelines on grief and dealing with the death of a loved one, written by many people at a way higher pay grade than me. By no means am I any sort of expert, nor am I qualified to give medical advice. What I can do, however, is approach this from the viewpoint of the Satanist and myself. When it comes to grief, there's no timeline for your grief. As Satanists, we fully embrace all that life has to offer, be it good or bad. We must go through our emotions and pain and experience them as part of life. It's well documented that there are 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. We need to deal with each phase in order to move past it. Be mindful in the moment. Feel the anger, feel the pain, feel the grief. Do not deny any of these feelings. Allow yourself to experience all of these emotions without shame or regret. Take the time you need to work through it. Reach out for help wherever you can. All of these emotions are part of the healing process, no matter how much it seems otherwise. When it comes to mourning, as far as mourning goes, you will mourn for both your loved one and yourself. By all means, mourn the passing of a loved one and the absence of that person from your life. It is, after all, a small part of you which has passed away as well. It's part of the grieving process and contributes to healing. However, as Satanists, we recognize and celebrate life, all while being cognizant of death. When mourning the loss of your loved one, it's important to remember to celebrate a life well lived. Even if your loved one's life was difficult, that person was still given the gift of life and got to live it. And more importantly, got to live it with you and you with them. The Satanic Funeral, as found in Church of Satan Magus Peter H. Gilmore's book, The Satanic Scriptures, shows that we as Satanists gather to celebrate the life and accomplishments of the deceased. Throughout my learning and application of Satanism, I believe that funerals are actually held for the living, since the dead don't care. And how could they? Moving ever forward. How do you move on after the death of a soulmate? Everyone's situation and emotion are different, but at some point you will have to learn to live again. Give yourself permission to heal and be happy. I believe that in order to truly end the process of grief and mourning, some sort of ritual is required. Granted, the pain and feeling of loss will never entirely go away, but ritual is a tool and a means for you to focus on yourself and your own healing process. Perhaps performing a compassion ritual for yourself will help you manifest your way forward. As I've mentioned in other articles, ritual is cathartic and helps you focus on your desires. When you are truly ready to move on, a compassion ritual might be the best course of action for you. Disposition of remains, if done formally, like in a cemetery, is also a ritual. However, I find that this can occur a bit too early in the grieving process to be an effective way of helping deal with our own grief. I think that the imagery and finality of a cemetery and interment serve as a reinforcement of our grief rather than a way to help us deal with it. Maybe you would perform a ritual where you free your soulmate, whether it's spreading the person's cremains or ashes in a place special to both of you, or symbolically releasing a token or memento of the person. This can serve as a pivotal point in dealing with your grief and moving on. Moving forward, perhaps a ritual on a day significant to both of you, such as the person's birthday or an anniversary. The point is, there are many ways one can deal with grief and loss, as well as celebrate life. We as Satanists are fortunate to realize that we have a very powerful tool at our disposal to aid in this process. Find out what will work best for you and apply it. Again, I'm no expert, and there is no way I could ever predict or understand what each individual will experience when dealing with the loss of a soulmate or their ability to move on from that grief. But maybe this essay will serve as a jumping off point for you to help prepare yourself for the eventuality of loss. Satanists celebrate life, even in death. We welcome it as a natural part of our experience and embrace all of the emotion that comes with it, be it fear, sorrow, grief, anger, or pain. You will experience loss. How you choose to deal with it is part of your own journey. Ever forward. Let's pause here for a break. When we come back, we're joined by Reverend Jeff Ivins for some personal experience on this subject.
You are listening to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. For comments, questions, or suggestions, email us at information@neutralwisdom.ca.
The Metro, only here at Radio Free Satan, your weekly dose of 1980s, with your host, Reverend Jeff Ivins, only at RadioFreeSatan.com. Hail Satan.
Decisions to be made.
And we're back with the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. Our guest today is a naval veteran, host of the Metro on Radio Free Satan, host of Brain Gel Radio, has an aversion to clothing, and I've already thanked him for wearing clothes today, which is really great. But he's also recently experienced the loss of his own soulmate. So welcome to you, Church of Satan, Reverend Jeff Ivins, to the podcast. It's a little bit of a heavy subject, and I'm kind of apprehensive about this discussion today.
Well, once you lived it, it gets a little bit easier every time. So, but it's still heavy.
It is 100%. And like we talked about before I came on air, when I wrote the essay for this, I mean, never having had a close human relationship or connection to anybody other than my wife, there's no way I can tell, or I could even begin to guess what you've gone through. So I definitely did not want to do you any kind of a disservice or do anybody any of a disservice. So I took kind of the practical approach, but it's got to be hard to kind of go through that and kind of keep things in perspective as it's happening.
Yeah, it is to a certain extent, but with the background that I've got with the military and like we discussed, the day we're recording this is the anniversary of my mom's death. You pick up little traits and little habits to where it's not as hard as you think it would have been.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to unpacking some of that with you for sure.
Okay.
For those of us that might not be familiar with you, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself, how you came to our organization, how you came to be a Satanist, things like that? And I want to save the USN stuff for question 2, because I really want to get into that one with you.
Okay, not a problem. Basically, when I was in 10th grade in high school, I remember the girl's first name, not the last name, but the first name. This girl, Desiree, in 10th grade English, handed me a copy of the Satanic Bible and a copy of Venom's black metal album.
Good combination.
So, good combination, I guess. Basically, it was like, oh, I'm going to sneak this home and in the house, listen to the black metal album, and then started reading the Satanic Bible, and I saw everything about me in the book. Everything I was believing in, even being raised around people that were very homophobic. The Satanic Bible had it in there saying, hey, they have every right to live too. I started living as per Dr. LeVay put out and joined the military, get out of the military, still have yet to join the COS. About 5 years later, in 2010, I'm already in my relationship with my other half, and I decided I'm going to send in my application and the active application at the same time. I got accepted. I've been elevated and everything else. So.
Well, I mean, that gives you the right to speak on behalf of the organization, and you do a hell of a job on your radio program, that's for sure. I really enjoy that one. And you got really great taste in music, too, being as we're around the same age. That's our epoch, man. That's where we came up.
Yeah.
They don't make music like that anymore.
Oh, no, they don't. No, they don't. Unfortunately, and that's one of the keys is music. I actually got to meet the high priest and priestess down at Fort Myers at the first Devil's Reign and the 50th anniversary of the Satanic Bible. I got to meet them both there. My other half got to meet them, and my other half actually was going to join the church.
That seems to happen a lot. You know, my own wife, Ms. Wiz, after she met the people and got the chance to interact and get to know what kind of people that Satanists really are. So, you know, there's a lot to this. I don't want to miss out. She has like severe FOMO. So she says, well, if we ever have a meeting or a conclave, I want to be able to get in. You know, I better get with the program here. And yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to have a discussion with her later on in the season about how her life has changed since she joined the organization as well.
Oh, good.
It's funny how we all kind of come to it in the same way, and we all kind of feel like we're not the same as everybody else. And then to find that commonality written by a gentleman we've never met was just like a light bulb moment, right?
Yeah. What's funny is his birthday and my birthday fall on the same day, just different years.
You were connected from the start, man. That's the thing.
Exactly.
So I've been excited to ask you these questions.
Okay.
Because you had reached out to me on email and said, hey, you were in the Sea Cadets and you were in the Navy. So was I. So first of all, and you can see how sincere I'm being on the camera. Thank you for your service, Jeff. Because I know how much you Infernal Legion guys love to hear that.
Actually, believe it or not, I don't. Because I'm the type of person where it's like, you thank me for my service will be the type of person to be that is worth defending.
Wow.
Is usually what I would say.
That's an amazing response to that. That's the first time I've ever heard that. You know, guys like Jeff Bowling will say, thank you for your support. Right?
Yes.
Or myself, I will say thank you. But that's a pretty snappy comeback. I actually really like that.
Be worth somebody defending.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What a fantastic comeback. So getting into your service, when did you join? What was your trade? I'm just curious if you were a gunner, a bosun.
Okay. First off, I joined 2 weeks out of high school. I joined the Navy and go through 2 months of boot camp. And a funny story about boot camp is I was just coasting through. The company commanders didn't have any problem with me. I wasn't a troublemaker, no nothing. I was passing all my tests. And all of a sudden, recruit Ivins, you're going to marching party. I'm like, what the hell did I do? What the hell? And I went to San Diego for boot camp, and certain Saturdays they'd have the SEAL instructors come up and PTS. I'm in doing this, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? In the down position, all I hear is this one instructor goes, oh, so this is the chief's son. I'm like, oh, shit.
Oh, was your dad in?
Yeah, my dad served 23 and a half years.
And he was a chief.
And he was a chief.
Oh, you had a target on your back the minute you stepped across the gangplank.
No, I didn't even tell anybody.
Doesn't take long.
No, I don't. No, especially when you don't write letters home. The recruiter probably got notified and they sent word out, and that's how they found out about it. And I'm like, oh, shit.
So, question for you, and this is an odd one. We're the same age. And I remember when the U.S. military had that whole don't ask, don't tell thing going on. Did that affect you at all?
No, it didn't. Due to the fact that I was living the straight lifestyle.
Okay.
I was dating a woman. I married her, had 2 kids with her. We didn't get divorced until after I got out of the Navy. And then I said, well, maybe I'm bi because whatever. And she couldn't handle that. That's what ended up us getting a divorce over. So the don't ask, don't tell, that did not bother me at all.
Was that difficult for you? Were you questioning at that point? Were you Did you know that something was different about you, or were you just kind of going through the motions like you were supposed to?
I was going through the motions like I was supposed to.
Wow. That must have been tough on you mentally.
It was. You were talking about, what did I do in the Navy? Basically, for the first 2.5 years, I was a deck seaman. So I worked for the bosun mates. And after 3 years in, I was a cryptologist and I
Oh,
dealt with communications. So
that's
I
an
was the
awesome
one.
trade. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I got to see some good shit.
I love your first couple of years where, basically if it moves, salute it, and if it don't move, paint it. That
Yeah,
was
exactly.
So how'd you make the transition to cryptology? Did you have a university or no, you joined right out of high school, so you didn't go to university for that or anything?
No, basically what happened was I was on the ship out of Mayport, Florida. They had cryptologists on board. Being an undesignated, I could strike for an A school or for one of these other rates. And I applied to go and attend another A school. And that's how I got become a cryptologist communications. Basically, I was a glorified radio man.
A little more to it than that, man.
Well, yeah, but I can't get into that.
No, that's true. If you told us you'd have to kill us, and that might take you a while. So,
Yeah, and the thing about it, that's what my ex-wife would tell people.
oh no.
He could tell me what he does, but then he would have to kill me.
Oh, wow. Okay. Sorry.
That's fine. But I after I became a cryptologist, went out to the San Diego again. I was out there for 2.5 years on a board of carrier, 2 deployments on there, did 1 deployment on the small boy before I became a cryptologist. Then I ended up down in Key West, and that's where I got out of the
What,
Navy.
what rank were you when you discharged?
I was E5. If I had stayed in, I probably would have made chief or senior chief by the time I got out.
What was the reason, if you don't mind me asking, what was the reason you got out?
I got sick of the politics. There was a guy that was right out of A school. Key West was his first command, and he made E5 shortly after I did. And I'm like, this is bullshit. He's the stereotypical brown noser. He was up the department chief's ass so much that probably could tell you what he had for breakfast. I made E5 first, but we took the test together, and I told him, I says, you're not going to make it first shot. I says, you're an early test taker. And he's like, no, I'll make E5. I made it. He didn't. And it pissed him off.
Well,
But
you'd been around enough to know what was going to
yeah,
happen. Yeah.
yeah. I did tell them, I says, if he makes E5 without going to C, I'm out of here. And as soon as the results came back, he made E5. Luckily enough, we were doing the reduction in force. So I submitted my paperwork.
And what have you occupied yourself with since that time?
I want to say I worked for AOL, did photo processing, drove a truck for a little bit, did phone support for a ISP, and then I got on the pension from the VA, and I've been on it ever since.
And gives you time to focus on things like the Infernal Legion and the
Exactly.
podcasts and to be creative and to be yourself, which is,
Exactly.
and you earned that. So
Yeah.
for real, thank you for
Yeah.
what you did,
Thank
because
you.
I think that everybody that does that and gets out and has the opportunity to live after they've done it, they deserve every piece of life that they can get after that. So that's a huge
Exactly.
accomplishment. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I've been dancing around it. So I guess to the reason that I asked you here, I would, if it's okay with you, I would love to hear about your partner, how you met,
Okay.
how long you guys were together. Just some juicy details would be great.
Oh, juicy details.
Well, not too
Ooh.
juicy. This is almost
Yeah, I
family
know,
shit.
I know, I know. Well, I got divorced in 96. And shortly thereafter, I started talking to this guy on what was called IRC or Internet Relay Chat. This is before chat rooms really became a thing. And I talked to him and around my birthday. For some reason, we stopped talking. And then we started talking just before October of 97. And I said something about, I needed to get out of Jacksonville. And he's like, well, come up here, get a job up here and stuff like that. He came down, picked me up, drove up to just outside of Atlanta. And we were together ever since for 26 and a half years.
Quite an accomplishment, man. Just like we talked
Oh,
about
yeah.
before, you don't see that kind of longevity anymore.
Mm-mm. Especially in the gay community.
Oh, it's different. Okay.
Oh, yeah. The majority of the gay community that I have seen, 10 years is the max for most people. There are exceptions to the rule. There's a couple people here that live on the campground that have been together 15, 20 years, but it's a rarity. It's not the rule.
So you two were together and you knew you were meant to be together. That's the impression that I've gotten from all the talking we've been doing.
Yeah. He actually, after the first time we talked, he chatted with his cousin and said, I just met the man I'm going to marry. And just off of one chat, he said that. His cousin still remembers it.
Some people, do you believe in love at first sight or do you know immediately? When I met my wife, she was 16 years old. I
Yeah.
wasn't allowed to think that way. Plus, she
Yeah.
was like my buddy's sister. So,
Yeah.
and I had to ask permission, when we started dating. But yeah, I mean, when you know, right? And
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's amazing that you got to experience that.
Hmm.
Now, can you tell us what happened with your partner? Is it really hard to still talk about?
Well, it's been over a year since he's passed, but he suffered from herniated discs and he had them on pain pills and he was popping them like candy. Well, those pain pills affected his kidneys. So he had stage 4 kidney failure. They put him on dialysis. He was in and out of the hospital for heart conditions and stuff like that. And he picked up sepsis. What happened was the last month he was alive, he was in and out of the hospital or assisted living facility. He went into the hospital because they were going to take part of his one foot off, and the sepsis got him. And also, he had a heart attack at the same time. I'm taking the dog out that he wanted. I didn't want the dog, he did. Two cops come up, said that he had passed away, and I was in shock. I didn't know how to act. I'm like, that was a routine procedure. Nothing with him was routine.
Well, you're kind of describing that as a surreal moment.
It
So
was.
I would assume that you were pretty much with him almost every step of the way. And
Yeah.
it's like you said, this seems like it came right out of the blue for you.
Yeah. The last year of his life, it went down real quick. He would go to dialysis on his own, but the last 6 months, when he wasn't in the hospital or in assisted living, I was taking him to dialysis 3 times a week, picking him up 3 times a week. At the time, I was the adjutant for American Legion posts down there in Florida, and I still had to do my work. So I would take him to the dialysis center, then I'd go in and do my adjutant work.
So did he have a prognosis? Did you have time to prepare for this, or was it literally like a shock? When he was first diagnosed with this and kind of going through it, did they say, "Oh, well, you know what, this doesn't look good, get your affairs in order," kind of thing, or you were just kind of going through the motions again to get through this, the both of you?
And basically, we were just both going through the motions. We were told that the amputation of his foot was basically a routine procedure. With the sepsis that had set in, and I think there were some blood clots that had formed from when they amputated his foot that caused the actual heart attack. When the cop, like I said, when the cops showed up and said he had passed, I was like, I just felt numb the whole way because it was not expected.
And you had to go down to the facility, I guess, and go through the motions of being the partner of the deceased in that case?
Well, actually, he had me listed as his cousin. Was we were never officially married, but we were together long enough to where I call him my husband, and he did the same. And
Mhm.
but he had me listed as his cousin. he had a will already made up and everything like that because he's like, oh, I'm probably going to go before you. So
It was kind of something that, well, I mean, we all need to prepare for the inevitability of it, right?
exactly.
But we're never promised tomorrow. So, I
No,
mean,
we're
this,
not.
there's a huge takeaway for me in this conversation because it's true. We aren't promised tomorrow and life can change on a dime.
Exactly.
When we were talking about you coming on the show and talking about this, you had
Uh-huh.
mentioned that doing this would be part of your healing process, part of your grieving process. So
Yes.
when this all started, what was that process like for you at first? And how has it changed to where you're at the point now where you seem a little more comfortable talking about it?
Believe it or not, I seem comfortable with it, but I'm not really. I say this because, I said that because I usually don't talk about my feelings that well. And this is one way for me to get the emotions out without me actually just laying in bed, bawling my eyes out. This way I can get my emotions out in a controlled situation. Actually, I'm talking to somebody, not myself.
Well, it means a lot to me that you're willing to come on and talk
Yeah,
about this. And I
yeah.
think it is a huge step to come on and do this. And I think there's
Hmm.
so much value, well, especially for me not having gone through this, but I think there's so much value for anyone who's experienced what you had and can
Yeah,
say, yeah, you know what? For the first month, all I could do was lay in bed and cry my eyes out because
exactly.
I didn't know what else to do. So at what point did you decide that it was time to move forward? Or like I talk about, there's no time period for grief and you let it happen as long as it's going to happen. At,
Exactly.
at what point did you decide, okay, well, I need to start making some decisions and making some changes now?
Probably about a month after he passed, he turned around and basically, like I said, he had the will. He gave me everything. I was like, okay. I told him I was going to sell everything, get an RV, move to a clothing optional campground, and live my life. And he's like, you do you.
So he'd be happy the way you turned out.
Exactly.
That's incredible. And that's
And
exactly
actually, I
how it
got his
should be.
ashes up on to the left of me right now.
Some of them, but we'll
So,
get to
well, yeah, yeah,
we'll get to that.
yeah.
What did you do from a personal standpoint to deal with your grief in the immediate stages and going forward? And did you also apply any of the satanic principles to dealing with your grief and reconciling that for yourself?
My grief is, I guess you can say, did you ever watch the movie Hellraiser? Remember at the end where the one girl's like, I want nothing. And the lead Cenobite goes, you accept sorrow and hurt. That's what I go through. I don't want people feeling pity for me. I don't want people feeling that for me. I guess you could say movies helped.
Hey, whatever works, man. Seriously.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I got a tattoo on my arm from my mom when she passed. And I'm like, I got 31 tattoos or 30 tattoos. And let me go ahead and get another one. Got his name tattooed on my ribs. But I don't do compassion rituals for myself. I guess you can say take data from Star Trek, The Next Generation, and that's the position I'm in. So I'm using an archetype to deal with my loss. One of these days, I'll be bawling my eyes out, but right now I just can't do it. Like I said, I lost my mom 35 years ago, and I lost him just over a year ago. I've got to go on with my life. He wanted me to keep going, and that's what I'm doing. When we get further along, I explain why it's not that hard for me to actually talk about this.
Do you feel on some level that you have an obligation to your partner to be successful, to successfully move on and to be happy? Do you want
Yes,
you're still trying to please your partner? That level of
exactly.
commitment always exists, right?
Yes, that's basically it. He wanted a third person in the relationship when he would pass, but it never developed. He wanted me to be happy. He wanted me to live my life to the fullest, and that's where he started learning to be about Satanism, is live your life to the fullest.
Well, and that is exactly what you're doing, judging
Exactly.
by everything that that we see of you on social media and everything that you're involved with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what would you say, Jeff, to somebody who's gone through this, or how would you prepare somebody? Let's role play a little bit, and I'll say,
All right.
prepare me to go through this myself.
Uh,
What would you recommend? What worked? I mean, you've to an extent you've touched on what worked for you,
yeah.
but if I knew that I was going to lose my partner
Mm-hmm.
and I can't and I Zoom called you and I said, "Geez, Jeff, I don't know what I'm going to do, man. How did you deal with this? Any tips for me?"
The biggest tip that I've got is there is music that covers. Music has always been in my life. Find music that you and your partner love to listen to. I'll play Love Song by The Cure. I'll play Fly to the Angels by Slaughter. I'm trying to remember her name. Lena something or another from, she's a Russian singer, and she did a song called Never Forget. She was one half a Tattoo. And then the two ultimate songs, Wind Beneath My Wings by Bette Midler and Silent Lucidity by Queensryche. When you feel down, listen to those songs, especially Silent Lucidity, because it talks about the mystic of, oh, there's somebody in heaven above us and they're keeping an eye on us. As Satanists, we know there is no such thing. There's no real soul in us. But to me, a soul is what people remember you. When somebody passes away, as long as you never forget them, they're really not gone.
Well, that's what makes us immortal, right? And
Exactly.
even, the immortality and the gratification of the ego, which is what we
Mm-hmm.
believe intrinsically, is to say we're going to create things and leave them here as our legacy and
Exactly.
honor our memory, and that keeps us going,
Exactly.
regardless of what we thought.
Yeah,
We're preparing our own way.
exactly.
I love the music tack because I'm a musician, so I have a lot of songs that I've listened to with my partner as well.
Mm-hmm.
What goes on emotionally when you listen to those? Like you seem to,
Um,
so I'm going to make an observation, and I'm no
okay.
psychologist, but in order to talk about it, you seem to be able to separate yourself from the emotion piece and
Yeah.
talk about it objectively.
Mm-hmm.
But I would think that music in that case would kind of be a key that just kind of opens that door and kind of lets that stuff come out.
The songs let a little bit of that emotion out, because I don't play all those songs all at once. I play one song, maybe a day or two later, I'll play another song or something like that. It lets a little bit of that emotion out to where I cannot control it, or basically to where I can control the emotion. And that's what the songs do for me. There is another song is by Warlock called Love Song. And I would play these songs and send them to my hubby, and he would just start break down crying when he's listening to the lyrics. I'm like, well, that's how I feel. So now he knew what I was feeling for him, and he knew before he passed what I was willing to do for him. The best key that I've got is treat your partner the best way you can. Be with them, help them out, and everything else is the bottom line. Because I know Miss Wiz, something happened to her. You're going to have to find your own path on how to deal with mourning. Just like if something happened to you, she'd have to do the same thing. Music is always a great thing because it gets the emotion and gets it out there, but yet you can still control that emotion.
You're pulling a lot of heartstrings here, Jeff.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, you definitely are. I'm going to get some feedback on this one for sure. I know I
I
am.
hope so.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, not fantastic, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know exactly what you mean.
Very
Well,
cathartic to even talk about it.
yeah. Well, the thing about it is, it's like, if somebody gets cremated, like I had him cremated, and before he passed, he's like, "What are you going to do when I go?" And I'm like, "Well, I'll cremate you. I'll spread some of your ashes down in the Keys and some up in North Georgia from where he's from in North Georgia." And he's like, "Oh, great. First, you're going to burn me up and then you're going to drown me." And I'm like, "Well, duh."
Just make sure I'm gone first before you start any of that, right?
Yeah.
But you'll always keep some. You had mentioned that
Yes.
you have some with you and you'll always keep some. You've done the spreading that you wanted to do, and now what's left
Yes.
you will keep.
Something that I didn't tell him, but because I can get buried at sea, when I go, I'll get cremated, have my ashes spread out at sea, have his ashes spread with mine.
Very poetic, actually.
Oh, yes, it is.
And no fitter burial for a Navy man than to be buried at sea. I can't say enough about the bravery that you've shown today by sharing all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you very much for that from the bottom of my heart.
Yes.
I would really like to find out what's next for Jeff Ivins. So, are you looking for love right now? Or is it too soon for you to be thinking about something like that at this point? And are you open to it? Because you know what happens? We stop looking and then, like a bolt out of the blue,
Bam.
it shows up, right?
Yeah.
So, are you ready for that, or are you going to wait a little bit first?
I'm going to wait.
Okay.
If it happens, it happens. I'm not going to go out and say, well, this is my type of person. Do you want to date or anything like that? I'll just be friends with people. And if they say, hey, we get along real well and everything else like that, let's start dating, I may do it.
All
I'm
right.
not holding my breath.
Note to self, don't include Jeff's personal phone number in the liner notes for the show. Got
Oh, please, no.
it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, not the Neutral Wisdom podcast is not a dating service yet.
Exactly.
But hey, you're on here now, so you know what,
Yep.
guys? If you like what you hear, he likes long walks on the beach. He doesn't like clothing. One of these days he'll be open to it. So just get a hold of me and let me know. I'll pass you along. And I'll take a small commission from you, Ivins. How's that?
I see how it is. Always the ulterior motive.
Hey man, we don't do nothing for free around here. We're saying
Well, that's true.
There's got to be
That's
something in
true.
it for me.
Yeah.
So we talked before about your shows that you're doing.
Mhm.
So we know that you do the Metro where you're doing the 80s music. Tell me a little more about this Brain Gel Radio. I'd like to hear a little more about that, because this is the part where we want to figure out where we can find you. So we know about the Metro, but this Brain Gel thing seems interesting.
Brain Gel was started in 2000. The guy who originally started the station has passed. I bought the station before he passed away, but it was his baby, and I bought it from him, and it's all hard rock and heavy metal. I've got a DJ from Australia. I DJ every so often. Then I got the Metro podcast that I do every week. I got the Naked Satanist,
I was going to ask about that one too. Yep.
which I need to do another episode. But I also started another radio station for my hubby. Basically, it's called Worley Radio. It's his last name, and it's anything that would not be played on Brain Gel. You might hear, well, you could probably hear Five Finger Death Punch on Brain Gel when a DJ's on, but you won't hear it on the loop. Both stations are running 24/7. I know Five Finger Death Punch is on Worley Radio, but you won't hear Cher, you won't hear Tattoo or anything like that on Brain Gel. That's all the Megadeth, Metallica, Accept, Anthrax, and stuff like that.
Oh, the good stuff. Gotcha.
The hard stuff.
Yes, gotcha. Yeah. Well, okay, but there's a line, right? Because I know that a lot of our membership is into metal. And I'm in my 50s, you're in your 50s.
Yep.
And I'm going to put a bullet in my foot right now and say that a guy gargling razor blades to me is not metal. Metal is what we're talking about. Singers.
Iron Maiden.
You got it.
Judas
Guys that could sing, and not even as far as the Queensryche or the Halloween, like not the operatic stuff, but just singers. There you go. He's flashing me, folks. He's flashing me.
He didn't want to see tattoos, but as soon as he said Queensryche, I'm sorry, I got to show that tattoo off.
Oh, I knew I couldn't get him to keep his clothes on for the entirety of the episode. But any fans of Gen X hard rock and heavy metal, Brain Gel Radio sounds like the place for you to go. I know I'm certainly going to be going there now for sure, now that I know what's on there. So
yeah. And then, like I said, if you're not into the hard rock heavy metal, go to warleyradio.com. It's a simple page. You know, you can use My Tuner Radio if you got it on your phone. Search those two stations and you can listen to them live free of charge.
Are any of your shows on Facebook, social media, anything like that? Or do we go to specific websites for those?
Basically, if you go to braingel.com, it's 2 L's, not 1, 2.com, or braingelradio.com. We got a Discord channel for people that can make requests when there's a DJ on. Warley Radio has got a chat room. The DJ from Australia will jump on Warley Radio as well, and he'll take requests. I'll take requests. That's basically it.
You're a busy man. And
oh, yeah.
I know we've talked about it, and I actually dropped a little bit of a hint to Magister Bill when I had him on the show last week.
I heard.
I want to do a show about start your own podcast, and if I didn't get you guys, it would be a huge, huge mistake. So obviously, you're definitely invited back. I would love to have you back again to talk about a lot of other things. We got a lot of things that we can talk about, you and I.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sure. Is there anything else that you would like to pass along about today's conversation?
If you want to, I gave a list of songs and artists. Also, take a listen to, Five Finger Death Punch does a cover of the song Gone Away. That's another good song.
I will make sure to include all of the songs and the artists in the liner notes for this one.
Okay. Make sure you have somebody that you can trust to talk to in case something happens. You can get a hold of me, email at rfs.metro@gmail.com if you need somebody to talk about something. I'm more than willing to do it.
Well, you've just signed yourself up to be my personal grief counselor, so welcome to it, buddy.
Not a problem.
Well, thank you again. Thank you again so much for doing this. I appreciate it. I hope it was cathartic for you. There's a lot of takeaways, not only for me, but I think for everybody else here. And I look forward to having you on again, my friend.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be here and do this.
Until next time, hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
And that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and a huge thank you to our guests and all of you for joining us today. Please drop a like or comment down below. For questions or comments, you can email me directly at information@neutralwisdom.ca. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. A like and subscribe go a long way in getting this podcast out there. Check me out on Facebook under Robert Shirley, and check out Instagram at neutral_wisdom. And be sure to visit the website at neutralwisdom.ca. And don't forget, Neutral Wisdom, Contemplations of a Satanic Warlock, now available at Amazon in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle formats. Until next time, ever forward.
You have been listening to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. For more information, email us at information.neutralwisdom.ca, Facebook under Robert Shirley, or Instagram at neutral_wisdom. Also check out our website at neutralwisdom.ca. Program copyrighted 2025. Devilish Gentleman Enterprises.